Hi, Ray Gonzales here. I'm in Lincoln. I grew up right here on the same spot where we are now, on D Street, right across from McBean Park. Um, House right behind me. Family of 9. My mom, Sally, 8 brothers and sisters. And right here from Lincoln. Went to school here, all kindergarten through 12th grade, and loved it. And growing up here, when I'm like 3 or 4, I'm working, making mud pies. I didn't know it was clay. And once I started and I made something, I knew that was it. Like, that's what I was supposed to do. I'm supposed to make things. And I didn't know it was clay, but that was the beginning. And I knew, and I still think, most people know what you're going to do for a living right when you're little. And you know you're interested in this or that, and we pursue it or not. Went to school here in Lincoln, had some great teachers, great friends, terrific community, and went to Sierra College, studied art, went to Sac State, studied art, workshopped in Florida, Alaska, Nevada, and just after school's done, came back home to Lincoln to teach art, to teach about clay, to come back to community, and it's home. Lincoln's home to me, always has been, always will be. When I was in middle school, I went to Glenn Edwards. It was middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. It was called Glenn Edwards School. I didn't know it was called Glenn Edwards School. I never thought about it. Years later, I finished college, I come back, I'm teaching there, and I learned a famous pilot from Sheridan. Went to school in Lincoln as Captain Glenn Edwards. He was a rock star in aviation, went to schools in town, was such an accomplished pilot that after the war was over, he was a test pilot. And he was instrumental in developing the flying wing, which a version of today exists. And unfortunately, it was early on, and there was a terrible crash he died in. So Edwards Air Force Base in Southern California is named after him. Glenn Edwards School in Lincoln is named after him. And I realized I didn't know that. I'm a teacher. So I decided all the students need to know right now. We have somebody that's incredible. School's named after him, so I made a mural based on him. And his name's Glenn Edwards. And so right at that same time, Harry Edwards, his brother that still lived in Sheridan, I knew him because when I was a kid, I worked summers at the school. He was a custodian, great guy. I go to his house, Harry's house in Sheridan. He gives me his captain's wings of Glenn, photos of him, and I use that and I sculpt a mural that's on the corner of Glenn Edwards School still today. And I wanted to honor and recognize and let students walking in the door and staff that is maybe not from the area to know, like, this was somebody special from our area that did incredible works, and to recognize that. So that's why that's there. On the back of the Glenn Edwards mural on 3rd and L Street, because there is a brick base that houses the mural of Glenn Edwards. On the back, it was just brick. And I was teaching for a Sierra College in the evening, and my students, a lot of them from Lincoln, were interested in learning how to make a mural. And so with different schools having different mascots, I always thought Glenn Edwards had the best mascot. You have a Black Panther. How great is that? Like this powerful beast, like it's an imposing, strong, great image. And so I turned one of my Sierra College classes into a mural class. And it's like, we're all working on this. And on the back of this, on the back of where Glenn Edwards mural is, on that same stack of bricks, we're going to make a Black Panther, recognizing what a great image this school has. And so we did. I had my students there work on it with me at Sierra College, and we sculpted it. There's some nice details in there, and they helped me sculpt it. I fired it, we glazed it, and they helped me install it, and it was great. I think it has one of the best mascots around. There's some curious ones out in the world. I won't talk about which ones, but there we go. On the corner of Lincoln Boulevard and 7th Street, the corner of Gladding McBean's property, I had carved several large terracotta pipes, 4 of them for their 150th anniversary. It has their insignia, their logo. I carved on for them. I'm happy to do it. They commissioned me, asked me if I would carve them. And I have a deep connection to Gladding McBean, the terracotta in town, but Gladding McBean in particular. My great-grandfather came from Mexico and worked there and bought the house that I ended up growing in from his earnings there. I wouldn't be in Lincoln otherwise. He set up roots gliding. McBean gave him the opportunity. He was a hard worker. They took care of him. He passed away before I was born. My uncle, Joe, also worked at Gladding McBean. It's a second generation. I ended up working at Gladding McBean on commissions, on art, on sculptures, commissioned for them and by different cities that were doing public works, and I would ask, can I go to a residency here and work? And they allowed me. The cost of the residency would pay for it, but to be able to work in the factory that my grandfather worked in was pretty special. Over the years, my son Gabriel, fourth generation, was working there. Gladding hired him to do videos for them. And he worked on some sculptures there with me on projects, and 4 generations of a company that helped to build Lincoln that's celebrating its 150th anniversary here. Like, I'm over the moon to be able to do some work and to be a part of that connection, and happy to join in when the people from Gladding McBean ask me, can you do something for me? The answer is absolutely yes. So that's on the corner of Gladding McBean. Inside there are more sculpted pipes that I carved for them, but happy to do that. I appreciate them being here. Creekside Oaks was a brand new school. When I first started teaching, the first year it opened up, beautiful big school. We had a lot of growth in Lincoln, and what I always wanted to do was sculpt a mural for a school that had the imprint of every first year student. And so I did. Again, with some of my Sierra College students, we worked hard. We took a survey of every student at the school, what their nationality was, what their story was, sort of their origin story. We assembled the results, we tabulated them, and in the shape of an Aztec calendar, we made this giant circular tile mural with, at the centerpiece of it is the mascot of the school, which is a red-tailed hawk. And it's holding the earth in its claws. And around it are the stories. There's a Cinco de Mayo one, there's an Irish one, there's a German one. Tiles are carved reflecting who goes to the school, the first year students. As well as there are 13 moon cycles, indigenous calendar. There's 13 cycles of the moon, and so you'll see phases of the moon there. Around that there are acorns that used to be the food here for the Nisan on the Maidu that are there tucked in too. And all this great imagery, but I wanted the actual imprint of every student. And so what we did was we went to every single classroom, 800 students, and had every student on a tile would take to their classroom, imprint their thumb, then we'd write their initials on it. And their teacher's initials would be the same, so you knew where to find it. And so in that mural right now, in the blue circle, you can find it today. And over the years, I've snuck in to watch people come into the room and see the mural on the right when you walk in and find their thumbprint. Now they're adults with families and finding their thumbprint. At Creekside Oaks Elementary now, it's called the Lincoln Community Center, right off of Joyner and First Street. My very first art in public places mural, ceramic mural, is right here in Lincoln. I've done some in Sacramento and other places, but first one right here in Lincoln, and it was my start, really. The California Arts Council and Placer County Arts Council had grants available, and so I wrote a grant to do a work based on who was in Lincoln before Lincoln was a city, and how did that develop? Who were the people that were here at the start? It was a multicultural grant. I wrote it. I was lucky to get funded. The city was generous enough to give me that little plot to do something. And so it's like, who was here? I grew up here, but I'm not a historian. So I got a hold of Jerry Logan, who was dynamite, and I sat with him, and we worked on the indigenous people and then the people that came after, and how did it start? How did it grow? And so with that mural, the indigenous people here, like this was a tribal land for the Maidu and the Nisan, and they were here with the acorn trees and salmon fishing, and the oak tree was sort of the mother. It was the shelter, food, and it was the source. And so that was a start. And if you look at the mural, and this is, a lot of people don't see this, and unless someone tells you, it's hard to see. The mural, how I did it, how I presented it is, the top has a light frame of a house, the border. And it's like, well, it's when you're in kindergarten, you draw a house, it looks like that. And that's the house of Lincoln. And then if you look again, there's also a curve that does this, and underneath that curve is the story of who was here initially, and that is the indigenous peoples here. And then you look on the top of that curve, it's that. Well, what is that shape? That's the shape of an umbrella. We're under the umbrella of who was here first. And so you'll see that when somebody tells you, and there it is. That's the story of who was here first on the bottom half of the umbrella. On the left side, there's a story, tell briefly, and other images of our indigenous people. And on the top, what came after? What was the life source for Lincoln? What drew people here? And it was a clay. So on the top, in place of the tree, is an old image I carved from an old photograph of Gladys McBean. Different people immigrated here from all over to work there, from Italy to Portugal to Mexico to wherever, to come find a job with their expertise or hard work, and built the town up and moved here. This year's 150th anniversary of Gladys McBean, and it was because of the people and the collaboration with the factory. So that became the source. And so images around there are based on that. There's an image of one of their vases they made there with several people there. One of them looks like it's a collaboration of me and the grandfather of some friends, the father of Isabel Meyer, who worked at Gladys McBean. We looked a lot alike, so I did a collaboration. It looks like him. I had a photograph of him. He looks startlingly like me, but I put ceramic tools in his pocket. So it's both of us. On the top of the mural, there are different images, and there are patterns of 9 of oak leaves. I grew up in a family, there's 9. And the 9 oak leaf pattern represents that. It's symbolic. There are 3 acorn patterns. I have 3 sons, that represents them. And so it's loaded with imageries. And on one side in the corner of the mural, and on another, there are images. One of them is a coyote standing on the moon. And it's many moons ago that this happened. The coyote was a trickster in a lot of indigenous cultures, and a genius, but a trickster as well. And tucked into the bottom part of the mural, on the bottom left, there's a grove of 3 trees. And so the trees, I have 3 sons, and the trees we had a lot of Japanese ranching, fruit ranching here. That's what that's for. But if you look really closely, and I found this story out from Jerry Logan about the history of the salt man. At Auburn Ravine's creek that comes right into town, ravine, there's a deposit of salt. And as a kid, I didn't know there's salt, okay? But there's a legend that goes along with that, and it's the salt man story. And here's how it goes. Up above Auburn, the Nisenan were sitting around by the ravine. They had caught some salmon, they're eating it, it's cooked, they're having a good time. And they notice someone in the distance that's huge. He's really tall, and he's white. Not Caucasian, he's white. And they don't know him, they don't know what to think of him, but they're eating, and in their culture, you share. So they go take some salmon to him, and he's tentative. They set it down, and they go back to where they are, and he tastes it. But then he leaves it, and he's starting to walk away, and they want to know more about him. So they start walking to him, and he sees them coming, and he starts coming down the hill to Lincoln by the ravine. He sees them coming, he runs. They're running after him now. They're chasing. That's a full-blown chase, and they're after him. But he's huge, and he's he's moving too fast. They cannot catch up with him. Of course, one of the members of the Nisenan tribe is a coyote, and the coyote's fast. He's on 4 feet, and he's moving. He's catching up to him. And as this tall white person is rounding the bend in Lincoln at the Auburn Ravine, the coyote wants to stop him. All he knows how to do is to stop him. That's his charge. So he gets an arrow out of his quiver, pulls a bow back and shoots him. And right as this tall white person steps into the water, the arrow hits him and he dissolves into little granules. And he's amazed. He doesn't know what just happened. The rest of the tribe catches up to him and they're like, what happened? Like, what is this? This is amazing. And they reach down, there are these white granules and they're shiny and they pick them up and it sticks to their fingers and they taste it and it tastes pretty good. It's the salt deposit, and that's the story of the salt man. And if you look on the trees in the middle row, you'll see on the third tree the tail of a coyote, and further ahead you'll see the leg of the salt man. You have to know the story to find it, but it's tucked into the mural if you look. Like, that's loaded with information, and so that was a fun piece to tuck in there. So that's the history of that mural. First one I did, I was absolutely over the moon to be able to do it, and took a very long time, but fun to do. Happy and proud of that one.
That's cool.
For the gift mural in Beerman Plaza, there's also a train, the front of a locomotive that's sculpted right there, and in front of it are the workers that built it in Lincoln, right at where the dollar store is in Lincoln, right off Lincoln Boulevard and 5th Street. There at the tracks there used to be a train depot. A train would stop here, but the tracks had to be built, and some of the workers that worked there were black and Asian, and they were hard workers, the Chinese, and they had just worked, and so I found a photograph of the train. I sculpted it there. That train was right there, and near it I put the workers that did the work there, and they're sculpted there. I used images from people I could find from my high school yearbooks to tuck their images in so that they're included. I didn't want any generic images. It had to mean something, to the history of the town. So that's how that came about. A few years ago, people from Elliott Homes were going to build a development in Lincoln off 193 Turkey Creek Estates. And they commissioned me to make something for their park and for their roundabout. And so for the park, they were interested in terracotta and what could I do there. And I grew up in Lincoln, and I knew that when kids were young in town, and my own kids, a lot of the preschools had a big terracotta pipe laid on its side that kids could climb through and climb on top of. And it was a fun thing to do, to play with. And I thought, at the park, I could sculpt 6 terracotta pipes, 6 feet tall, laid on their side in the shape of a friendly snake that curves, that goes into a park in Lincoln. And it has a history of Lincoln in there with the clay and terracotta with Gladding McBean. And so Gladding McBean was dynamite. Egidio was wonderful, the plant manager, to allow me access to go carve these 4,000-pound pipes and work and fire there. And then I had to have them delivered and craned in. And it's at Elliott Homes Park right now at Turkey Creek Estates. It's amazing, just fun. It's probably 45, 50 feet long. And that's how that happened. At Elliott Homes Project, Turkey Creek Estates, another commission they had awarded me was to make something for the roundabout that you drive in at one of the entrances. And so it's like, okay, I know what I can do. 6 huge terracotta pipes, again, with imagery of the wildlife here in Lincoln, in the Lincoln area. And so as you drive in, you might see a red-tailed hawk flying, you might see an egret, you might see a bass, you might see different animals as you drive around the roundabout there. And so no color on it, it's just the color of terracotta is dynamite. It's in the ground, and now it's up, and it's reflecting the images of the wildlife here. So that was a fun project to do. I've been lucky. I've been able to teach in the same schools I went to and teach some of the kids of my friends that I grew up with their kids. Taught at Glen Edwards, same middle school I went to. Taught at 12 Bridges Middle School. And now still teaching at Sierra College, same place where I went. And I see my students, see my community right in the same classes. And the investment of the students working hard and finding somebody from their community that's working hard that'll help them is like, it couldn't be better. I'm just blessed to have that opportunity. So I feel pretty lucky, but it's been great. So right now we're in my studio, and it's on the same spot where I grew up, same plot of land, the same spot where I first touched clay. I have a full-blown studio here where I work, sculpt, make works, and send them out into the world. Same spot that my grandfather Inocencio bought from working in clay at Gladding McBean. Yeah, my mom raised us, all 9 of us here. I'm lucky to be here in town. My studio is here. I retired from teaching at the middle school and teaching part-time at Sierra College and making art here full-time. And just lots of things are happening. Working on commissions. The Autumn Art Tour for Placer County is coming up in November. I'll be there. Crocker Art Museum has another art fair that I'll be participating in the fall. I'm on Instagram, Ray Gonzales Artworks. I'm on, I have a website, Ray Gonzales Artworks. You can find me, see where events are coming up. It's always nice to see familiar faces. And so come on out, find me, and let's just talk and catch up.
I'd like to thank Ray for taking the time to talk to me about his artwork. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can go on YouTube and search for Dave Lightfoot.